After his return to the White House, President Donald Trump launched a series of tariffs targeting some of America's closest trading partners, Canada, Mexico, and India. These were not isolated incidents. They marked the beginning of what many referred to as a trade war, a high-stakes gamble with the global economy as the prize. But what exactly are tariffs? Why were these countries chosen? How will this impact an ordinary US citizen? And most importantly, what is the true cost of this economic experiment? We will analyze the data, explore the consequences, and reveal the lasting impact of Trump's tariff tsunami. Before we proceed, let's break down the basics. What exactly is a tariff? Simply put, a tariff is a tax imposed on imported goods. When a product crosses a border and enters a country, the importing company must pay a fee to the government. This fee is the tariff. While technically paid by the importing company, the costs are often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. If a company imports steel and has to pay a 25% tariff, it'll likely raise the price of its products made with that steel to cover the cost. The primary goal of tariffs is to make imported goods more expensive, thereby making domestically produced goods more competitive. Governments use tariffs for various reasons, including protecting local industries, creating jobs, and reducing trade deficits. President Trump argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and industries, address unfair trade practices, and reduce the US trade deficit. He claimed that other countries were taking advantage of the US, and that tariffs were the only way to level the playing field. The imposition of tariffs is not a new gameplay. History lines up a series of events where tariffs have been imposed in the past. Let's go down memory lane to have a glance and understand the history to know the present. One of the most infamous examples was the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930. Enacted during the Great Depression, it imposed steep tariffs on imported goods in an attempt to protect American businesses. However, the act backfired, leading to retaliatory tariffs from other countries, a sharp decline in global trade, and worsening economic conditions. This historical precedent serves as a cautionary tale about the unintended consequences of protectionist policies. Fast forward to the early 2000s. President George W. Bush imposed steel tariffs in 2002 to protect American manufacturers. While this move temporarily benefited the steel industry, it led to higher costs for industries that relied on steel, such as automotive and construction, ultimately resulting in job losses. Now the question arises, who is the ultimate victim of the tariffs? Breaking down the tariffs is an important aspect of this whole scenario. So let's understand this aspect. Contrary to political rhetoric, tariffs are not paid by foreign governments but by businesses and consumers in the importing country. When tariffs are imposed, the importing company pays a higher cost for goods, which often results in higher prices for consumers. For instance, when the Trump administration imposed tariffs on Chinese goods in 2018, American companies that relied on Chinese imports had two options: absorb the additional costs, which reduces profitability, or pass them on to consumers, which eventually increases prices. This is why tariffs are sometimes referred to as a tax on consumers. A 2019 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that the cost of Trump's first-term tariffs was almost entirely borne by American businesses and consumers, with minimal impact on China's economy. This raises concerns about whether the 2025 tariffs will follow a similar pattern. So to understand whether this time it will be a repetition of history or not, we also need to break down country-wise analysis. So let's dive deeper into it. In February 2025, President Trump imposed tariffs on Canada, citing a national emergency. The White House stated that the tariffs were meant to pressure Canada to halt illegal immigration into the US and to stem the flow of fentanyl and other drugs entering the country. The administration argued that Canada wasn't doing enough to prevent these issues. Trump has long expressed dissatisfaction with the trade deficit with Canada and sought to encourage companies to relocate to the US. The new tariffs, 25% on most goods, were meant to hold Canada accountable, according to the White House. However, these actions have sparked controversy, fears of increased costs for American families, and retaliatory measures from Canada. For Mexico, the concerns were different. Trump's administration pointed to illegal immigration and drug trafficking as key issues, arguing that Mexico needed to do more to stop the flow of migrants and illicit drugs into the US. Additionally, the long-standing trade imbalance was a major factor, as the US has a significant trade deficit with Mexico. While the tariffs were initially set to be implemented, discussions with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum led to a temporary pause. Sheinbaum agreed to deploy 10,000 National Guard troops to the northern border to enhance security and curb illicit activities. Historically, Mexico has been a major trading partner of the US, with trade between the two nations totaling over $650 billion annually. The North American Free Trade Agreement, later replaced by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, played a key role in facilitating this economic relationship. Imposing tariffs risks disrupting this interconnected supply chain, particularly in industries such as automobile manufacturing and agriculture. As for India, the situation is more complex. During Trump's first term, he and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a cordial relationship, even promoting each other during elections. However, Trump has long criticized India for imposing high tariffs on American goods and even threatened to impose 100% tariffs on countries within the BRICS bloc, including India, if they attempted to move away from using the US dollar. India is a major exporter of pharmaceuticals, textiles, and information technology services to the US. The US is India's biggest foreign market for pharmaceutical products, accounting for 38.8% of American medicine imports. Given India's relatively small share of America's overall trade deficit, the situation remains fluid and could change at any time. Now comes the important question, how it is going to impact a US citizen. Let's delve into this very interesting and important aspect. For many Americans, tariffs can feel like an abstract economic concept, but the reality is far more personal. Higher tariffs mean higher prices on everyday goods, from cars to groceries. When manufacturers face increased costs due to tariffs on raw materials, they often pass these costs on to consumers. Small businesses also bear the brunt of tariffs. Many rely on imported materials to keep their costs competitive. When those costs rise, smaller companies may struggle to stay afloat, potentially leading to job losses and reduced wages. Even farmers, a traditionally strong base of support for Trump, face the consequences of retaliatory tariffs. When countries like China impose tariffs on American agricultural products, it becomes harder for US farmers to sell their goods abroad. Studies show that tariffs disproportionately impact lower-income households. Since they spend a larger portion of their income on essential goods, price hikes hit them harder. A Harvard Business Review study found that Trump's previous tariffs cost the average American household over $1,200 per year. With the new tariffs, that number could climb even higher. So question comes, what an US citizen or other economies will get on this tariff war? Is it a worthy gamble? The consequences of these tariffs go far beyond government policy. They impact not only diplomatic relations but also the daily lives of millions of Americans. The question remains, was this trade war a necessary correction to unfair trade practices or an economic gamble with long-term repercussions? As history has shown, protectionist policies can have unintended consequences, and the true cost of these tariffs may not be fully realized for years to come. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you have liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.